Hello, everybody. Welcome back. My name is Sarah Lowenthal, and I am so excited to be here again as we film another episode of What's Happening. Now, our last episode, I think, touched a raw nerve or a chord with everyone where we discussed our children being accepted into schools, yeshiva, seminaries, high schools. And running along a similar train of thought in today's episode is again concerned with our children's education. But this question is less focused on being accepted and is more focused on if this specific, in this case, it's specific yeshiva is the right place for my child to attend. So without further ado, I'm going to read the question that was sent in. And just as a reminder, if any of you have any questions, please email them, send them in to hello@whathappening.ca. Right there. Okay, so here we go. My child knows that they want a career, and while they are currently in a Chabad yeshiva, they are worried about their future. My child is not so motivated, and he doesn't really necessarily want to be in an environment that doesn't have an emphasis on high school, diploma, credits, and university, and then job. And the concern is, what if I'm turning off my son from Yiddishkeit by forcing him to stay in this yeshiva? Maybe a more moderate yeshiva would be better suited for my son and his life goals. Tamchei Tamimim, as we know, has a big emphasis on being a chassid and being an Ived. And perhaps my son would be better suited to attend a yeshiva where the skills and the training is connected to furthering his secular education and thereby enabling him to have a career. So this is the question, and I am very, very interested to hear this answer, as I'm sure many of you will be. So we're going to hand it over to Rabbi Jacobson, and hopefully we can shed some light on this.
Thank you very much. Wonderful once again to be back and to deal with some of the most interesting and difficult, real questions that are coming in, that are presented. And thank you very much for the opportunity for trying to answer them with the help of Hashem as to what is the right thing, what's the right approach, what's the right way to look at things, the right perspective to help us answer and deal with these most important life questions. The question is, what happens when a child is unmotivated, not motivated, and not excited about yeshiva, about studies? And this is a general question, not just with regards to which yeshiva we are in, but a general question as to what happens. How do you motivate the teenager to be motivated about studying? It's not a matter of Yiddishkeit, not Yiddishkeit, more intense Yiddishkeit, less intense Yiddishkeit, more modern, less modern. In general, some teenagers are more motivated to study and to spend their time in yeshiva and focused on their studies, and some teenagers have a hard time with that, or they don't enjoy it as much, and they're not they're not disciplined enough, or they don't want to challenge themselves enough. I'm not going to call it lazy, but some students will take an easier path. So how do we deal with it then? So I think that's one part of the question, if I understood correctly, and if I haven't, is that correct? Okay. And and the second part of the question is, if my son is career focused and he wants to go to high school and that's the type of life that he wants to have as an adult, is his place still in Chabad yeshiva where that's not emphasized, or should I try to encourage him to stay in Chabad yeshiva? If I understood the question, this is the way I understood the question, and I'll try to answer it be'ezer Hashem Yisbarach, as I understand from the perspective of Torah, from the perspective of Chassidus. So I'll say a disclaimer that when we speak about these questions, the questions that we had, the other episode about the child being not being accepted, or these types of questions, every child has to be educated based on their own chanech lenar al pi darko. We have to be very focused as to looking at the child, the individual child, not at their siblings and not at your nieces and nephews and not at your cousins or your friends' children or the children that you think that you would like to have. You have to look at each individual child. As parents, this is our responsibility, parents, educators, to look at each individual child and ask ourselves, what's the best way to reach this child, to motivate this child to be the best version that they could be, to be wholly connected to Hashem. And each child has their own path, just like each of us adults have our own way of serving Hashem. There's a general framework, and we have each of us have our individual journey of how we connect to Hashem and the way we express our connection to Hashem. And this doesn't start at adulthood. This starts as children. So we have to look at a child and really try to cater to this child to the best of our ability, to try to raise a child. They tell a story that a parent came to a Rav and said that, they were having a particular challenge with one of their children, and the parent said, I don't understand where I'm going wrong. I don't know what I did wrong. I raised all my children all the same way, and this child is giving us a hard time and is really challenging. And the Rav said, that's where your issue is, because you raise all your children exactly the same way. You can't raise all your children the same way, because each child, and those of us that are blessed with children, we know that each child is really a Olam Maleh and completely different. It's a different universe. And the same tactics don't necessarily work for the same children, and the same approach doesn't work for the same children. Some different children have different needs, different talents, different abilities, and we have to try to cater to that and to raise that and to nurture that so that they can be the best version of who they are. So there are two parts to this question. It's not, if you're not motivated, go to a modern school, because a person could be non-motivated in a modern school too. So what are you going to do then? Take them out of school? Just let them sit and do nothing? So we have a question of, how do you motivate a child? How do you motivate a teenager? That's one question. And I'll try to address that first. It's not easy. How do you motivate an adult? How do you motivate yourself? Often we look at children as projects, and that's not okay. Children are not projects. They're human beings, and really whole human beings. And this is really what's going on. This is really what's happening. Hashem gives us, parents, educators, the opportunity and the honor to raise his children, to nurture his children, to try to bring the best out of them, out of these children. We don't own them. We don't control them. They're not our projects made out of clay, and we'll just, we'll play around with them, manipulate a little this way or the other way, and then poof, they'll grow up exactly the way we would like them to grow up. That's not education. That's not the intention of what Hashem has when he gives us a child. Hashem has something in mind. Hashem gives a child certain talents, abilities, characteristics, flaws, challenges, difficulties, the whole package of what makes the person. And Hashem says, raise this child. Do your best. Look at this child and give them the environment. Give your child, your son, your daughter, give them the environment where they can truly shine. Enable them to give them the feeling of safety, of security, allow them to be curious in a healthy way, in a proper way. Keep them safe from outside influences, and encourage them to do the right thing. And encourage them to find who they are and to find what they are, to find their value, to find how significant they are. A lot of times we're not motivated. Sometimes we have to try to figure out what's the reason of the lack of motivation. Is it because a child gave up? Is it because a child is being lazy? Is it because a child is having a particular challenge, whether it's an emotional challenge, or sometimes a child just doesn't get the material, doesn't really appreciate the material? So perhaps it could be a way of making the material more accessible or more understandable, more understood to the child. There's a certain point of trying to figure out what it is. And then there's motivation. How do we motivate ourselves? It's not easy. It's not easy to do the right thing. Hopefully we have educators. And so as parents, it's important to speak to educators and to be invested in our children's lives and to be invested with the educators. to try to see to it of what could be done, to see it as a partnership, to see it as as really the greatest mission that we can have, of taking a child of Hashem and motivating them to be the best that they could be. So this is in general with regards to motivation. It's not easy. But it's a holy mission that Hashem gave us. Some children are motivated. Every child is motivated in a different way, just like every human being is motivated in a different way. And we have to try to speak to a child to see what is it that motivates them? What is it that gets them going? What is it that excites them? And try to utilize them as motivation and ways to motivate them, for them to understand how significant it is to be educated, to understand what it means and how these the decisions that they make at that point will shape them. But with all of that, sometimes children will just still be unmotivated. They won't be super excited. And I look around sometimes at parents, or I hear sometimes from parents and say, oh, my child is so unmotivated and so not excited about their studies. And so I'm so disappointed and so unhappy with how they're behaving, how they're living. And sometimes I turn to them. Some of these people, I remember them from Yeshiva or know them in a different way. And sometimes I don't know them. And I ask them, how were you in Yeshiva? How were you when you were in school? And they'll say, oh, I was pretty much the same way. So I look at you now. You're pretty motivated. You're driven. You're focused. You're determined. You actually study. You work. You do. And you're accomplishing. You're achieving. So we also have to keep that in mind, that while it's true that we have to do our best, but we also have to remember that sometimes it takes some more maturity. Sometimes a 15-year-old, or I'm not sure the age of the child or the asker, I don't know what age that child is, but sometimes it takes maturity. But education is not dictatorship. The point of education is not just to get a child to do something. The point of education is that a child should see the value and the significance and the greatness of doing it, so that they should do this on their own. Not just because somebody's standing over their head and warning them or threatening them, and they're scared of not doing it, and that's why but they should be excited about their subject matter, should be excited about their studies, excited about what it is that the yeshiva or the school or whatever it is demands from them, that they should see the value in it. And that takes time. And that takes being spoken to. And that takes being spoken to in different ways. Sometimes in formal ways, sometimes in informal ways. Sometimes it's a story that motivates a child. Thank God I have the schos, the opportunity of sometimes speaking to yeshiva bachrim or to others. And you never know. You never know what really touches a student or touches a bachar or touches a person that will motivate them to actually to live up to who and what they are. So question number one is, so I'm splitting this question as to motivation in general. The answer to how to motivate a child is not by putting them into a different environment. Sometimes that is, but in general it's not. The answer to motivation is, if we go to a different school, because then that becomes an endless pursuit of, the place has to motivate. The places don't motivate anybody. It's a person that has to become motivated. So sometimes it's an educator, sometimes it's a parent that says something, and you'll have different people. You look at people that are highly motivated and ask them, what motivated you, and at what point in your life did you become motivated? And sometimes people are just, this is why Hashem made them. They were born this way, they were always motivated, always driven, always focused. There are such people, and there are many people that are not like that. At a certain point in their life, they made that switch. And sometimes they'll turn to a certain educator, that this educator spoke to them in a way that, and reached them in a way that nobody else did. And sometimes it's a story that somebody said. And sometimes it's disappointment that they saw when they weren't living up to who they were meant to be, and the disappointment they felt in the parent or whatever it was, or the pain that they felt that they caused to an educator, that's what really motivated them and reminded them of how important it is that they live up to who they are. So the solution to motivation is not finding a more relaxed school, because then you have the most relaxing school is homeschooling, so to speak, a bed and a pillow and a blanket. That's most relaxing, and no one suggests that that's what the best place is for a young man or woman that should be studying. So now, getting that out of the way, so now we have to focus on motivation, the proper motivation of a child, which is a great honor that Hashem gives us when He gives us a child, or as a student, or our own child, of different things that we can do to try to motivate. And this is our mission as parents, to find that key, the key to our child's heart, to our child's mind, to our child's psyche of what it is that gets them going, what it is that gets them excited, and they should motivate and do the right thing and to be focused on their studies and so on. And which leads me to the next question of, if my child is focused on having a career after school, should they still be in a Chabad yeshiva that doesn't encourage careers? So for this, I think that we have to go back to the name of our podcast of what's happening. We have to ask ourselves, what's really happening in school? What's really happening when we try to educate a child? And what is it that we want from a school? When educating a child, is it just that we want them to have a career, to be successful in their careers, that they make money? Somebody once asked me a question a number of years ago, and I think it's a very good question. He said, if you had all the money in the world, if money was not an issue, what would you do? And you start thinking of different projects or different programs or different areas of life that you would focus on, and then say to yourself, okay, now that I don't have all the money in the world, what's stopping me from doing these things? Because often we'll find that the things that are in our way is nothing to do with money. It's to do with our attitude, it's to do with our determination, it's to do with our focus. So yes, a child needs to have a way to support themselves. But the most important thing in education is not learning a career. Learning a career is a short amount of time, is a chunk of years, whatever that career is. Some careers are a few months, some careers a few weeks, some careers don't have to go to school, some careers you have to go to school for many years. But that's not what has to happen in high school. High school is a place where a teenager is, again, I'm assuming that the child of this asker is a high school student. Are they? Okay. So what should happen to us in our teen years? Our teen years are so delicate, and they're so impressionable, and it shapes us so deeply. So are we looking for a place that will teach career? Or do we look for, as parents, is that the smartest and is that the safest, is that the best place to invest the teen years of our child? Or do we want to have a place that will teach them to be wholesome people, to be good people, to be honest people, to be responsible people? When you're honest, wholesome, responsible, kind, compassionate, driven to make the world a better place, driven to living to being educated with regards to living a life of purpose, of meaning, of value, recognizing the value in everything that we do, recognizing our personal value. These are the greatest character traits that are so crucial for us. So now the question is, so we could either focus on going to a school that will prepare us for going to school again for a certain career, a certain job, or certain employment, or we focus on a place that will raise our child to be the best version that they could be, the best parents the best husbands when they get married, the best parents after they have children, the best friends to the people around them, most contributing members of their community, giving to the world, making the world the place that it's meant to be, a place of holiness, of goodness, of kindness, a place of peace, of redemption. I think that this is the time of working with a young man or woman is in their teen years, of shaping their future for who they should be, the type of parents that they'll be, the type of spouses that they will be. So now the question is, how can we be the best? What school is best for us to be the best person? The best person is not the person that has the best career. The best person is the person that has greatest purity, the purity of mind, purity of heart, sincerity, knows how to form friendships properly, humility, kindness. What's the best school that does that? I think, and from my experience and from what I've seen and heard, that Chabad yeshivas in which Hasidus is taught, Hasidus of our generation, Hasidus that the Rebbe teaches our generation, where these teachings are taught, and the ideals are implemented, not just as a theoretical study, but as they're trying to implement this in our life. This is the greatest gift that we can give to our children, because then no matter what they'll do, whether they take on a life of shlichus or they take on a life of having a career, but then they're mission driven. They have purpose in their life. They're not just floating around trying to figure out what's the next fad and where's the next indulgence that they can give into. They're educated to be wholesome, real people. That's what Tomchei Tmimim is all about. And that's what the Chabad model is meant to be. Let me read a part of a letter of the Rebbe. There was an annual dinner to raise money for the United Chabad Yeshiva Tomchei Tmimim. Here's a letter that the Rebbe wrote on the 15th of Tevis, 5728. That is 1968. I'm not going to read the whole letter. This letter was sent. This was the 70th anniversary of the funding of the original Chabad Yeshiva in Lubavitch. And the Rebbe says that when you look at a project that's been going on for 70 years, you can really tell, the strength of it. So you join a yeshiva. Like what is the focus of this yeshiva? You need to have history. You need to be able to look back and see what's the success rate of this yeshiva. What are they trying to achieve? What are they trying to accomplish? So in this letter, the Rebbe points out that after 70 years, we can say that this is a resounding success. And so here's one of the a part of this letter. The Lubavitch Yeshiva has traversed an epoch of 70 years, one of the most difficult and critical periods in Jewish life in Golus. Yet, by the grace of God, the Lubavitch Yeshiva stands today in the center of the network of Torah institutions encompassing many parts of the world at the height of development and creativity. It can clearly be seen that these sacred institutions are fulfilling the purpose and destiny which their great and saintly founders had envisioned and ensured for them. And their purpose is, and this is a point that I want to emphasize, to raise whole Jews, underlined, to raise whole Jews living the whole Torah, Tomchei Tmimim, Torah Tmima. So to raise whole Jews living the whole Torah who serve as luminaries to illuminate their surroundings with the light of Torah and mitzvahs in both the revealed and the inner dimensions, thus paving the way for the coming of Mashiach Tzidkenu. The point of being whole is that we're honest and we're real, we're authentic, we're living genuine lives. We're not living split personalities. We're not living in tension. We're not living not knowing who and what we are, what our purpose is. It's not just learning another page of Gemara or knowing what my career will be. That doesn't bring us peace. That doesn't bring us happiness. That doesn't make us good parents or partners or community members. Living a life of purpose, that's what really makes us rich and strong and happy and the most amazing people that we can be. So that's really what's happening when we're trying to educate our children. So I can understand the consideration to look for a more moderate yeshiva or more relaxed yeshiva, but that's not the solution to being not motivated. Granted, I made a disclaimer earlier, and I'll say it again. Sometimes a child does need a different type of surrounding, and after real consideration, I mean, what we want is to give the best possible. Now, the best possible doesn't mean the same for everybody. For one child, it means one thing. For a different child, it means something else. But we have to consider this very seriously as to what is it that we're actually trying to give. What's the question that we're trying to answer? What are we trying to solve? What's the issue that we're trying to remedy? And to understand that the best thing that we could do is to give our children, to raise them as whole Yidden, as truly whole and embracing the whole of Torah. Doesn't mean that it comes easy, doesn't mean that it comes automatic. I just love this paragraph, these words from the Rebbe, that this is the purpose of Tomchei Temimim, to raise whole Jews living the whole Torah, who serve as luminaries to illuminate. Now, where do you serve as luminaries to illuminate? Whether in your career, at your work, or in your position as an educator or a shliach, that's not what the Rebbe refers to. The Rebbe is saying not just, it's only if you take on the title shliach, that's what Tomchei Temimim was meant for. And historically, it hasn't been that case. There were people that dedicated their lives completely to spreading Yiddishkeit in the classic way, and then there were many people that had other jobs. Mendel Futterfass, a famous chassid, he wasn't a shliach in the traditional sense of the word. For many years, he was a businessman. He was a soicher in Russia. Did that take away? Did that diminish from his being a chassid, from him being a luminary? I'm just using him as an example because he's the undisputed chassid, Mendel. And the truth is, with many other great chassidim. What's happening is that when we have an opportunity to raise a child, we have to give them the best possible, not just materially, but spiritually, emotionally, and sending them to Tomchei Temimim, or Yeshiva, school that goes in the light and the path of the Rabbeim, of Tomchei Temimim, that founded Tomchei Temimim, is the greatest gift that we can give to our child. And I'll conclude with a final note that sometimes when we raise children, we think that it's going to be forever. We think that we're just going to do the same thing over and over and over again forever. And that we can't envision ourselves doing so. But Baruch Hashem, having had the great schus to seeing a few children through the quote-unquote educational system, I could say it passes very quickly. And you have a short window, you have a very small window of opportunity of real influence that you could truly shape and you can truly direct the trajectory and the blessings that your child will get. I think we have to do whatever we could to give them the best education possible, to put them in the most holy environment possible, that they should be surrounded with the greatest ambition of greatest connection to the Rebbe, greatest connection to Torah mitzvahs, dedication to Torah mitzvahs, obviously all focused on serving Hashem, and that is the purpose of who we are, to serve Hashem, and to serve Hashem in the way of Torah mitzvahs, as the Rebbe teaches us, as the Rebbe writes in this letter, to be luminaries, to illuminate our environment, paving the path to Mashiach. May you have a lot of nachas.